Kevin, Grant Nelson, in town today. He arrived yesterday. Today is the day that he's spending the majority of his time with the team, meeting with Musk, meeting with the team, his potential new teammates themselves. Have we heard? I know this is early in the day, early-ish in the day. Have we heard anything about how his visit's going?
Well, I've got a source telling me it's going very well. That was kind of the descriptor following the heels of his Bama trip. There's information going around. Some of it's, uh, not as probably not as solid as some of it, and I'm kind of sorting through a lot of that. We're talking about NIL money. That's going to play a big part in this. System fit, opportunity for playing time in a role. So these are all things that Grant Nelson's looking at. And look, he just took basically the entire month of May to go through his NBA opportunities when he was in the draft pool. We're talking about he was invited and attended and participated in the draft combine. That was, a select number of players that got to do that. He was among them. He's worked out with NBA teams. And then a day before the deadline, the NCAA's deadline to withdraw with if you had college eligibility to come back to play, a day before that, he made the decision to return to college. Earlier in May, he had gotten in the portal because there was a May 11 deadline for players to have immediate eligibility the first time transfers. They had that deadline to get in the portal if they wanted to take advantage of that. So he was kind of playing both options there. So we know it's down to a college decision. He was set up for a Baylor visit before Bama and Arkansas. That didn't happen. I'm not going to go into details on that, but I think it's not what people might think. But Baylor's out. So he took the Bama trip midweek. It arrived for his Arkansas visit
Yeah,
late.
how did that Bama meet go?
Yeah, again, I think it. What I heard, it went very well. But I'm hearing the same thing. That's the descriptor so far during his Arkansas visit. Um, and so now that it's down to these two schools, I'm hearing we should hear something potentially and maybe likely within the weekend. Here we are on Friday, so we're getting there. The visit's supposed to carry through late afternoon, maybe early evening at Arkansas today. Yesterday was really mostly a travel day. Like I said, he arrived late afternoon, early evening to Arkansas, there's some other details going on there. Um, that I really can't get into right now.
Sure.
I felt like coming into his Arkansas visit, there might be just a little bit, at least a little bit of ground to make up with the gains, that Bama made during his visit. Going into those visits, I'd heard some positives. One being from his camp, that came from his camp, that just based on pre-visit stuff, there were things about Arkansas that they might like more. And so some of this stuff, we'll probably be able to dive a little deeper into once all the dust settles on this. But it's very fascinating because this is a top five transfer portal prospect out of roughly 2,000. By the way, the portal is still cranking out players because if you miss that May 11 deadline and take advantage of that one-time transfer, um, you
Hmm.
you've still got a chance if you graduate to go in the portal if you're a graduate and have immediate eligibility. And so we're still, here we are at the end of the school year, right? And players are finding out not only are they finishing up what they did in the regular semester, but they have summer school where they can finish up, graduate, and possibly move on. So I think the portal is going to continue to crank out prospects. The reason I bring that up is if Arkansas doesn't get a Grant Nelson, I think there's still going to be some good players. And I think that 3-4 combo, or maybe a more traditional forward, but something for the front line is what will shake out for this final roster spot that's available. But Arkansas would love to have Grant Nelson, top five portal prospect, and that's equivalent to a 5-star recruiting win if you get it, Will. So this is a big visit. Obvious, this is obvious stuff. We don't want to overstate it or understate it, but it's a huge visit on a national scale. Everybody's paying attention to it.
Absolutely, Kevin. Now, I was on Twitter earlier today, and you may not be able to talk about this, but I noticed that Grant could have been at practice, and it was a photo with TB potentially. Um, is this something that you could elaborate on?
Well, I can't confirm or deny that. I do know Arkansas had a practice this morning,
Okay.
fairly early. So they did have a practice. So obviously, if they're practicing during his visit, those things are overlapping. So I think Arkansas not only is rolling out the red carpet, but but it's an all hands on deck kind of thing. When you're going after one of the best players in the portal, you're not only going after best one, maybe arguably the best available talent right now, but at a position of need. And that's I just talked about it. Arkansas is going to look to fill this 13th and final roster spot as the roster stands now with some kind of frontline guy. And this is about as good as it gets, not just because he's 6'10, 6'11, not just because he's lengthy, athletic, but you start adding in the real skill and talent. 3 years at North Dakota State, first team all conference, led the team in just about every category. But when you watch him, his versatility, I mean, I call him a stretch four, not as much because of efficiency shooting from distance and from the perimeter, although he can knock some shots down, not at the same kind of clip as a Trevor Brazil, but because he's an excellent ball handler with some guard skill and instincts, and he can transition quickly from a handler to a low post guy just by turning and getting his backside into somebody after getting to a spot off the dribble. And now he's making different post moves. He's got great footwork down low, going baseline, going to the middle. He's an excellent passer too. So he sees the floor. You love high IQ guys. And if you could bookend, because a lot of people like to call Trevor Brazil a unicorn. We know his season was cut short last year after about 8 games due to that knee injury. Eric Musselman called him one of the top 5 players in the SEC.
Yeah, I don't think that's an
time.
overstatement.
So this is a similar kind of value guy, and you book in these guys, it makes everybody better. It makes Arkansas exponentially more dangerous. Certainly, you got to look at chemistry and how how things look on paper versus reality. But here's a veteran guy. He's not going to come in. He faced Arkansas last year, early season. I mean, this was back in November. He came into Fayetteville and had a good stat line game. He wasn't necessarily a world beater on the defensive end, but he put up some numbers. And this is a guy that Arkansas fans have put eyes on, even though it's been a while back. This is someone who's a bit familiar not only to Eric Musselman, but even the fan base. So I think this is obviously somebody Arkansas wants to get. It's a big visit. I don't, like I said, don't want to overplay things or understate them. I do think Arkansas had a little bit of ground maybe to make up coming into the visit, and we'll just leave it at that for right now. And obviously, to me, if he was sold on Bama after that visit, I don't think he would have wasted time. He had a long travel day on Thursday. I mentioned he arrived in Northwest Arkansas late afternoon, early evening. But fact is, he left pretty early from Tuscaloosa, so long travel day. If the Tide had him wrapped up, I doubt he would have made this trip.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody who Arkansans should be excited about. Kev, when do you think we'll know where Grant is going, and what do you, at this point, think the odds are between Alabama and Arkansas?
Will, I lost you there. Can you hear me?
Yep. All right. So, Kev, what I just asked you there was, knowing what we know now, when do you think we'll have a decision from Grant, and what do you think the odds are between Alabama and Arkansas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too close to call. I think it's fairly close. I thought coming into his Arkansas visit, Arkansas had a little bit of ground maybe to make up. But I think the visit's going well, and the fact that he came here makes me believe that the Tide didn't have an overwhelming lead, because he might have just gone ahead and committed. So I just think that it's going to be a close one. So I'm not going to project. I'm not going to give exact odds, project who's going to come out on top. I've been cautiously optimistic, in regards of what Arkansas is doing here. So I'll leave it at that. And I think the time frame is as soon as, if not likely, within the weekend sometime. So he wraps up the Arkansas visit later today, and then we could hear something this weekend. I think that's maybe the most likely time frame. Now things change in recruiting. But I think that's where we're going to get something in short order on a decision. And then Arkansas has got it wrapped up with Grant Nelson, or they're moving on to fill that 13th and final roster spot.
It's all very exciting stuff, Kevin. I think it would be very exciting for Razorback fans if they were able to get this kid. But